Scrooge said, "It's such a small goose." The ghost of Christmas Present replied, "It's all Bob Cratchit can afford." Recognize this quote's movie? Stay tuned to find out or check out the title of this episode of Talking Pictures Trivia.
Welcome to Talking Pictures Trivia, the podcast in which a group of geographically challenged friends explore movies through trivia as an excuse to keep their friendships alive. I'm one of these friends and today's host, Nick, and with me is...
Tom.
KJ.
And Alex.
Today, we're departing from our regularly scheduled programming to deliver you a rapid-fire format borrowed from our Talking TV Trivia subseries. We'll start with 4 essential trivia questions. The first question is worth 1 point, and each question after that is worth 1 more point. Then we'll follow it up with our theme discussion, this week being Turning Over a New Leaf. Tom, tell us about today's movie.
It's 8 o'clock on December 17th, 1984. Turning on the television, we would have had to choose between Call to Glory on ABC, TV's Bloopers and Practical Jokes on NBC, and airing on CBS is today's movie, A Christmas Carol. Nick will be our questionnaire today. Nick, what is A Christmas Carol all about?
This is a story that I think almost everyone should know about Ebenezer Scrooge. And everyone knows Scrooge is almost synonymous with being stingy, crotchety, and that's the gentleman we're introduced to here. He has lived a life dedicated to his craft of business, and nothing else seemed to matter, consumed by it even. And his life is not going to go well if he does not change his ways. So he's met with 3 spirits who hopefully will have a fundamental impact on him so that he can change the error in his ways. Will he? Well, yes, he will. And we'll discuss that a little further in this episode.
It's time for question 1.
We're going to jump right into it. I know you guys were all expecting 1 question per spirit, but we're not going to do that. So, we're just going to go with it. The first question is going to be, how many years ago did Jacob Marley, Ebenezer Scrooge's business partner, pass away?
Locked in.
Locked in.
KJ, you might be outgunned here on this episode.
Yeah, there's I think we have some Christmas carrots knowledge on this episode. I'm gonna
Some what? What was that?
Christmas carriage. Christmas carol.
Some Christmas carriage knowledge.
And then me. I'll lock in with a guess.
KJ, let's hear your guess.
18 years ago.
Okay, I think Tom was second.
7.
Alex?
7 years. That very evening.
Yes. I was going to say that very evening, but it would have been correct because today is not that very evening. But yes, the very evening of the movie. So both Tom and Alex will get the point. KJ, maybe next one. We got a few more to go.
It's time for question 2.
When is the first instance in which Scrooge experiences a fantastical occurrence?
Locked in.
Locked in.
Specifically this movie. So I don't know if it changes in other portrayals, but this movie.
Yeah, because in a Mickey's Christmas Carol, it's Scrooge, right? So are we counting DuckTales as canon? Like when?
I clearly said this movie.
This movie.
How is this a canon? It's just a world of Ebenezer Scrooges who are going through this.
Well, don't they have the multiverse? Isn't that like Spider-Man?
Yes,
No Way
it's the
Home.
multiverse. Yeah.
I'm stuck on a Frankenstein, young Frankenstein joke. All right, locked in.
KJ, did you figure out that joke?
I know the joke, but I think right before that, he sees a phantom carriage. I think he sees a carriage before he sees the knocker.
Okay, I think Alex is next. Tom did it first. Yep.
Yeah. It's the knocker. In this movie, it's the knocker. He doesn't see a phantom carriage in this one. I think that's the Disney one.
Tom?
I also had Marley's face in the knocker, door knocker.
Okay. Believe it or not, I know I'm dealing with some experts on here, but whether KJ got the right film or not, it's actually going to go to KJ. There was a scene in the alley when he's walking home and Jacob Marley is calling his name and the carriage passes through and it does dissipate into the mist. So I took that as Phantom Carriage because it actually reminded me of the film we saw, The Phantom Carriage. I was like, wow, they're using the same technology for TV movies in the 80s that they used in, what was it, the 20s or something?
Yeah.
The teens, I think.
Oh,
yeah, it was
Yeah, the teens. The 20s is actually too soon.
yeah. This is the famous Swedish film, The Phantom Carriage, the Victor Somstrand film we're talking about.
Yes. And I specifically watched this one too to see if it just like went out into the fog, but it actually faded. So I'm going to give this one to KJ. But you guys got the second instance in my opinion. So KJ, you're
points
back
on the
on top
board.
of the pack. Yeah, no, 2 points. Okay.
It's time for question 3.
According to Janet Holloway, Fred's wife, what is the correct answer to the following inquiry in the game of similes? Tight as...
Locked in.
I'm gonna lock in, but I don't remember exactly what she says.
I'm locked in, but there's one word that I'm debating between 2 words. So I'm gonna lock in, but I think this is gonna be embarrassing. Locked in.
I want to see how embarrassing this can be. KJ?
So it wasn't tight as a drum. That game stressed me out, by the way. If anybody wants to play that game with me, I'm going to say no, because you need to know the exact thing the person's thinking.
5 seconds.
Oh,
5 seconds. You have 5 seconds to do it. No. In similes.
Well, and yeah, in similes, 5 seconds, and you got to figure out exactly, right? Anyway, I think she said tight as Scrooge's drawstrings.
Okay, Tom.
I had tight as a drum because I couldn't remember exactly what she said.
I'm hopeful here that Alex has this. Alex, what is the answer?
As tight as your uncle's purse strings.
Yes, not his
That was the
drawstrings.
other-
KJ, you're close, but I gotta give it to Alex because
Yep.
he's spot on.
The drawstring. His
I
belt's
just thought
always
it
too
was-
tight.
It's so much creepier what you're saying.
That second spirit, he was pretty aggressive, right?
Yeah, he is. I mean, he's the spirit who shows you poverty, right? So
but he just pretty much like he's
Mm.
really like not just like, oh, I'm going to teach you a lesson. It's like you're
Mhm.
bad.
In the book, he's huge. He's like to the ceiling.
Mhm.
And if you see like even the Disney version, because it's animated, it's easy to do. He's very big. He's, like twice the size of a normal person. So he is aggressive, but he also shows him that people even though they have meager means, they have joy, and Christmas brings that spirit to them. So he was aggressive, but he was also, I think, very potent.
I thought he looked like John Cleese.
Yeah.
With the bigger bushy beard.
Scrooge would say something and he'd go, "Did you say something?" Like,
Was that guy on stilts or is he just a tall guy?
I don't know.
Yeah.
And how about that line? "Look here beneath my robes. Look at these." Like,
I always thought that was creepy, to be fair. That was very creepy.
Ignorance and want. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's
Oh, that was going to be a bonus question. You got it. No, it's okay. Yeah. I always thought that was like, whoa, hey.
The 1938 version with Reginald Owens, that when he does that, it scared the hell out of me as a kid.
I could see
kids
that.
were really creepy looking.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I don't know. I remember that part really well. You also got to remember I was like 7 years old, but it was like creepy.
I probably had the same experience with this film because I was very young when I was watching this and I didn't see those other versions.
Yeah, the Reginald Owens one, he's really creepy in that. And in Alistair Sims, the kids are more normal looking.
Okay.
But it's supposed to be really scary because the kids, they even say in the book, he even writes in the book, is that a claw or a hand beneath your arm?
Oh.
So
Yeah.
really kind of this, really very skinny, very
Mm.
malnutrition.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Hmm.
So we're going to jump to the last question. It really is still anybody's game.
It's time for question 4.
He met with 3 spirits. He learned some lessons. And then he wakes up a new man, which is great. But then the following day, he has to go back to work, right? What was Bob Cratchit's punishment for arriving 18 and a half minutes late the day after Christmas?
Oh, locked
Locked
in.
in.
We got a double lock in there.
I was going through this with my wife Rachel. She's been on the show, and I remember one part very specifically, but then I thought there was something vague after. So I'm gonna do the same. Locked in with something specific and something vague.
Okay, let's hear both, I guess.
So he says he's gonna double Bob's salary and better working conditions.
Tom?
You're not wrong. I don't think. He says he's going to double his salary. And he does say put more coal on the fire.
Yeah, you go out and buy another scuttle of coal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess I see KJ's point. Yeah. But I think predominantly it was I'm going to double your salary.
Alex?
He says, I'm going to double your salary. And then he tells them, and I'm going to take care of that family of yours. And something about Tiny Tim. And that boy will be well, or that boy will walk again. And then he says, well, what are you waiting for? Go out and buy another scuttle of coal.
Well, the good news is everyone's going to get the points on that one. I'm going to double your salary. I love that part. And yes, he did say that he's going to help him support the family, specifically Tiny Tim will walk again and all that fun stuff. But it does look like, and this isn't really shocking based on his wealth of knowledge on the topic, that Alex will be taking down this episode. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I could use the money.
Did you tell him there's no cash prize?
Doubling the Talking Studio salary.
Gonna double my salary.
Exactly. Well, congratulations to Alex, our winner. We'll be diving into our topic of the week, turning over a new leaf right after this break.
Join another Talking Studios production, Limited Lexicon, where we play through text-based adventure games. Text-based adventure games were computer games from before computers had graphics. The game uses text to describe a scene, and the player types back how they want to interact with the game. I'll read the text from the computer, and my co-host will feed me commands. This season, we're playing through The Hobbit from 1982 on the ZX Spectrum. Here's a quick sample.
I thought a lot about our first command, and I think it should be no print because we don't want to print things as we're going along.
I think by default, it's not going to print. And even if I did type print, where's it going to print to? 1982?
I would imagine if we go west, we're going to be south of the troll, right? Just south of the troll land.
Yeah, let's try it.
You go west. The troll's clearing. The visible...
Oh, we died.
No.
All right.
The troll saw us and killed us.
So I think we have to say the answer to the riddle then.
The answer is dark.
Say dark, I think.
Talk to what?
Gold.
Say Gollum dark.
You talk to Gollum. Thorin says, hurry up.
And we died.
And we died.
So we went northeast last time. So let's go southwest.
You go southwest. Visible exits are north, northwest. You see the valuable golden ring.
Oh.
We're ending it here. That's
Wait.
perfect.
All
That's
right.
perfect.
Limited Lexicon. coming to your podcatcher and YouTube in late 2022 by Talking Studios.
And we're back. So as I mentioned, the topic of the week is turning over a new leaf. I thought the story of Ebenezer Scrooge in A Christmas Carol was the quintessential version of seeing someone drastically shift in a very short period of time. So I wanted to explore this as well as see if anyone else had other examples in media that resemble this mantra.
A Christmas story, any kind of Christmas story, is about turning over a new leaf, right? I mean, that's the essence of Christmas, and the essence of this too. I mean, for me, the scene when Scrooge comes alive again after the spirits have visited him is always the most important scene, both in the book and in the movie. And in the book and in the best films, they always keep in the line, "I am like a little child again." That's the leaf that gets turned over, right? It's the child becomes the father of the man, to quote Wordsworth, and that's the Christmas spirit. Um, it's the revitalization or resurrection on the day that Jesus comes as a baby. And so Scrooge on Christmas morning is again like a child. He's like a little child. And it's not that he's childish, he's childlike. And in that childlikeness, in returning to being a child, that's the leaf that gets turned over, and that's what saves him. And that's what makes this, and any kind of Christmas movie, Christmas story, Christmas book, what have you, worth its salt, is this sort of recognition that the child is the father of the man ultimately. It's also why Marley has been dead 7 years. It's not 6 years or 18, it's 7. It's the holy number, right? And so it all fits into a piece.
I just learned something. Thank you, Tom.
Well, in the gospel, Jesus actually says you can't get into heaven until you become like this child again.
Mhm.
It's and it's also why they talk about born again Christians. You know, that's why it's titled that. But I kind of love the theme of this movie and the story. You know, his coming to see the light, to see the happiness and the joy in helping others, and being part of someone else's life. So I think it's a good it's a good theme.
Does he always buy the prize goose for the Cratchits and all the different versions?
He buys a turkey. It's a turkey.
That's right. The prize turkey. That's right.
Right.
Right. They
That's
had a
right.
small goose, and then he got the big turkey. Yep.
And
Yeah.
the one interesting thing was the goose was being cooked at the bakery. And when I was a kid, I lived in a housing project and we had small ovens. And a lot of times, if we had a lot of people over, we'd have to take the turkey to the bakery to have it, cook it in the bakery. So it's because they had huge ovens, obviously.
Yeah.
So yeah, you would see people coming out of the bakery with their turkey. So it didn't stop in the 1800s.
I never saw that part of it. That's really
He
fascinating.
mentions that we're going to get the turkey at the bakery. No, the goose at the bakery.
Mhm.
And I'd love to see that turkey that was as big as that kid. That must have
Yeah. He remains anonymous.
Well, in one of the versions, he yells down to the boy, "Do you know the turkey and the butcher?" And he says, "Of course I do." You know, and he says, "Buy it." And he says, "Oh, Wonka." He thinks he's off his leg, but not in this version. Oh, that was another word I learned. Wonka. And in the other version, the maid that he stops and, you know, when she comes in, when he wakes up, she says, "You had me screaming for the beagle." He terrified her that he was standing on his head and he was jumping
Yeah.
down. And she was terrified. She said, "You had me screaming for the beagle." But it's some really great old sayings. You'll send me to Bedlam.
Yeah,
That's,
the mental asylum. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh.
yeah. That was the mental asylum, and so there was a lot that gave you the culture of the times, you know, the feeling.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's another beauty of it.
So KJ, was it really strict to the portrayal in the Disney version, or you
Well,
know?
now that I'm thinking back, I'm trying to think the last time I saw the Disney version. But the Disney version's a lot quicker. There's stronger language in this version. There's a really good
I thought you were
line.
gonna say in the Disney version.
Oh, in the Disney version, yeah. Mickey's like, "Oh, the hell with you too." The But in this one, Fred says, "I'd like to have you to dinner," and Scrooge said, "I'd rather go to hell." I thought that was pretty good.
I really enjoyed his I don't know, his delivery. I did. Again, I don't have all the comparisons that Tom and Alex have, but I always thought it was great. And this is completely off base to the conversation, but I remember I would like mimic scenes in that film. And there was one where he's making, I guess, that stew over the oven or whatever that is in his room, the fire or whatever it is. And I used to get my ice cream and I would melt it down into like a stew and I would like drink it / eat it while I was watching this film. So it brings a lot of nostalgia just for the holidays of my youth. No, but I really did enjoy Tom's breakdown, kind of saying how this is common in just Christmas stories in general. Like the way he explained it made it very relevant to a lot of the other holiday films that I've seen.
Yeah. I mean, it's a different type of feast than Easter, right? Where there's this sort of resurrection and what have you. It's like a child comes to save you. Like that's the idea. And so it's, it's very much the romantic poets. And Charles Dickens is writing this in 1843, I think it's published. So it's very early on in the Victorian era. But there is this kind of idea of in Dickens and in the romantic poets of seeing like a child, which I think is part of the Christmas spirit, right? And I think it connects, Nick, to your idea, your nostalgia, and this nostalgia, I think, Dad, that you have for the 51 Sim version as well, which is this kind of longing for the past, longing for childhood again, which is also the hope of Christmas, which is why like the hokey stuff at Christmas is actually probably deeply meaningful if you connect it into the tradition of that holiday. Yeah, I will say the comparison between like some of the Scrooges might be very promising or interesting. George Scott seems to really enjoy being a commercial man. His Scrooge, he goes to the corn market, which we don't see in the book. We don't see, I think, in any other version. Right. That's
That was
completely
also going to be a
original.
potential bonus question. Like, what actually was he in business doing?
Yeah.
What did he do?
I think it's corn futures, right? That he
Well,
was...
in this, I mean, it sounds like they did a lot of different things, but yes, they are talking about a warehouse full of corn. So they are talking about some kind of commodity,
It's basically the mercantile exchange.
Yes.
Like how that is in the US. That's what they were dealing with.
I felt like he probably dealt with other commodities as well,
Right.
But that was the one they were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in the book, he buys up debt. That's what he does. He buys up debt and then squeezes people for it. So he's an absolute leech, is what his business is. With Sim, I think, and with other versions, human kindness seems to scare him. When his nephew comes, he almost seems kind of like taken back or appalled by this person. While with this, we see a little bit more joy I think in George C. Scott's version of the character. He really does like being a commercial man, and I think in either case, it's worth noting that until about the 20th century, the term ambition was a pejorative. It was an insult. And so to call Scrooge an ambitious man, be it that he's squeezing people for debt or that he's enjoying going onto the mercantile exchange, would have been an insult. So kind of framing that in the way Dickens does, I think does work in both the 51 version and in the 84 version.
I don't know if this carries through all the tellings, but even in this one, when he was working as an apprentice for Mr. Fezziwink, and the love interest, Belle, I believe was her name.
Yeah.
He felt that he needed to be successful to be worthy of her, but then he became so successful that he didn't have time for her, and he was playing by different rules then. So it kind of a victim of your own success there, and it took him off of the track of what was really important to begin with, which I know is part of the story, but I do find that to give us a little bit more depth in building his character.
And the other thing too, it shows you sometimes you have to look into someone to see what makes them. He hated Fred. Now it doesn't really show that in this version, but he didn't like his nephew Fred because his sister died giving birth to him. And in the book, his father didn't like him because his mother died giving birth to Scrooge. So there was a connection there. You don't see it in this movie, but in other movies you see it.
This one, I think they just say the likeness. They really focus on the likeness of the sister, that she died young.
Well, she died
and had a son. But
yeah.
I'm trying to see if they actually said
no, they don't.
She died during childbirth. I don't think so. They just said she died young and she had a son, Fred. So you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was really played up in the Sims version, and it gave you an insight on why he was that way, and why loving someone, he pulls back on that because he's afraid of being hurt. That's part of it too. So it helps you say, maybe this person's just, a rotten person because there's something behind what took place in his life.
I think that adds another layer if they did actually include, and it probably wouldn't have taken much to include that.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. They made a conscious choice not to, though, for some reason.
Yeah, it's also in the performance of Sim too. I mean, he reacts with like real disgust to Fred's kindness, to seeing Fred. And it's also this idea like that's interesting to bring up, that like Scrooge first felt hate from a parental figure because a birth went wrong. His birth was wrong in some way, and it's Christmas then fixes that eventually. I mean, it takes years and years or decades and decades, but eventually it's Christmas that fixes that. And it's ultimately healed when he goes to Fred's. He's able to go to Fred and see Fred for who he is, which is a person who is who's congenial and warm and open. And that's kind of a great note to see how he's able to heal, is he's able to see Fred for the person Fred is, and not for the person who died giving birth to Fred on Christmas. That's a lovely reflection.
That was a lovely note to end the movie on, and this is a lovely note to end this episode on. I'd like to once again congratulate Alex for winning this episode.
Thank you.
Yay!
Hopefully there will be no animosity in your family, as Tom's father, Alex, took it down. But hopefully you will heal just like they healed in this film.
Christmas dinner.
Yeah, he does all the cooking, so I guess I'll get over it.
Well, now I'm going to go down to the baker to get my goose. Okay, so you can find more of our content wherever you listen to podcasts, on our YouTube channel, Twitter @Talking Studios, and our website, talkingpicturestrivia.com. We're extremely grateful to all those who subscribe, like, follow, and leave a review. Which of the ghosts would you like to be, and why? Let us know on Twitter, talkingpicturestrivia@gmail.com, or give us a call at 201-467-8679.
You could find me on Twitter @ThomasLehman15.
You can find me on Twitter @KJ10001000.
And you can find me home cooking.
I can also be found on Twitter @TheNicknamed. And if I'm invited when Alex is cooking, I'm definitely going to come over. Ding, 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 ding. Next week, we'll be discussing The Maltese Falcon from 1941. Tom, how was your watch?
I've seen this movie more times than I can count, and I don't remember my first watch, honestly. I probably was in high school. I think I went through a John Huston phase at one point when I was in high school, where I just watched all of John Huston's movies, or most of them anyway.
As one does.
Yeah,
As one does. Yeah, I don't think
high school, John,
Yeah, I don't think I saw Under the Volcano, but I saw quite a lot of his other movies.
You didn't see Fat City, I know
And I
that.
didn't see Fat City, right? Two John Huston movies I still haven't seen, Under the Volcano and Fat City. And I mean, I've always loved this movie. I read the book for the first time in 2005, so quite a number of years ago, and I really like really love the book as well. Watching it again, I just it makes me laugh so much, and and the Bogart acting style is just kind of incredible and hypnotic. I mean, when I was in acting, I used to be an actor, for anybody who's listening who doesn't know, but I used to try to get my lines out. At least I would try this in scenes, try to get my lines out as quickly as he does in this movie, just to try it in different scenes. And oftentimes you junk it, you wouldn't use that because it wouldn't work. But I've always been like deeply impressed about how quickly he can kind of rattle through this script. It's just such a lovely thing, and I love the harshness of it. He's such a harsh character. I watched again with my friend and a former person on the show, Margaret. And she hadn't seen the movie before, and she was shocked by how mean he is. And God, it's the coldness of it, and the kind of simplicity of that coldness is also incredibly appealing. How about you, Pat? How was your first watch?
So I'm with Tom on this one. I think I've watched this movie more times than I can count. I've watched it many, 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 many times. I do remember my first watch. I think this is the first sort of classic era movie that I ever watched. So this is, I think I was like 12 maybe. So this is the first movie that I watched that wasn't Disney or a blockbuster or like As Good as It Gets or some rom-com. And my brother John, my oldest brother John, I think it must have been the end of August, and I was getting ready to go back to school, and I think it was the night before I went into either 6th or 7th grade, and he was like, "We should watch the Maltese Falcon." So he got the movie and we watched it. So I've seen it many, many times, and I read the book for the first time. I've read the book many times. I read the book for the first time in 2011 when I was living in London, and actually I'm doing my MFA in creative writing right now, and actually the novel that I'm working on is sort of an homage in some ways to the writing style of Dashiell Hammett and to the Maltese Falcon. So I know this movie very well. And I agree with Tom. It's just like, I think I like the side characters also quite a bit. While I like the Humphrey Bogart character, I also just I love Peter Lorre. I love Sidney Greenstreet. I think those two are just they're so much fun in this movie. Even Cook in this movie, I just think this is like a great, there's a lot of great character acting. I think it's a great film. It has a lot of fun to it. This, I think, is one of those. The other movie we discussed is sort of like movies that I would take on the island with you. This would be one of the island movies, along with something like Night of the Hunter. So I love this movie. KJ, what about you? What were your first viewing like?
This was my first viewing, so quite the opposite of you guys. This was my first viewing of the Maltese Falcon, and my first noir is when we did The Third Man, guys, which is kind of a anti-noir because he's a fish out of water at the same time as he's trying to be hard-boiled. So it was kind of good to visit an actual noir. I guess I've also seen Brick by not Brick, Ryan Johnson's. Was it Brick? The one that's in high school with all the. You guys know him? Nothing.
Rick. I know the murder mystery that Ryan Johnson did with Daniel Craig, but I don't.
No, this was a bunch of kids in high school, but it's written like a Humphrey Bogart noir, and they talk.
Was it made after 1980?
Main actor was Jordan Gordon-Levitt, the guy who was in Jordan
Gordon-Levitt.
Jason Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah, whatever.
The guy in 10 Things I Hate About You.
Yes.
Isn't it Joseph? I think it's Joseph
Gordon-Levitt. There we go. The guy in Looper.
This is a movie podcast. we're feeding expertise about movies.
Guys, I was kind of bored. I know there was a mystery going on.
How are you bored?
I'm with Margaret. He was kind of mean. I wasn't exactly.
I don't think Margaret was putting down the movie.
No, but he was mean. But audience, go check out the movie. I highly encourage you. How about you, Nick? How was your watch?
I'm still getting over KJ's criticism. He was a meanie.
He was. All right, and hang on, since we're on the topic, the other thing, you ever have like an argument with somebody, and then when you're in the shower later, if I had said this, it would have been so cool. That's him from the beginning, but somebody wrote the script. It wasn't like he's doing this in real time, but it felt like all those thoughts you have afterwards in a movie. But yeah.
So, to follow that one up, I was very excited to watch this one. Similar to KJ, this was my first watch, and that's about where our similarities end. I was very excited because we referenced this on many other episodes, and I had never seen it. So I've just been kind of dying for us to cover it. And I almost wanted to say my first watch of this was our 91st episode for the movie Chinatown, because the beginning is very, very, very similar. And now I wish I had seen this one first, but I also did enjoy Chinatown. So I really like this movie. I like the old timey dialogue and sayings and things that you just wouldn't hear anymore. I thought they might have put a different twist on the end. Maybe I'll save that for the episode, but I do like the way the movie played out. So that's all I have to say about that. We'll get right into it next week.
The Maltese Falcon is available on HBO Max at the time of this recording. Wow, Talking Studios,